Everyone says Ted's story is tragic. It's not. It's just bad writing wrapped in fake emotional depth. And it's time we call it what it is. There was once a version of Ted who at least carried the illusion of backbone. That man has vanished, replaced by a hollow, bewildered creature stumbling through emotional quicksand while the audience screams for him to grow a spine. The old Ted, however flawed, at least gave the impression of conviction. The current one appears to have traded it for a lifetime membership to the Society of Spineless Soap Husbands. His every scene is a study in regression, the confusion, the stammering civility toward Leslie, and the general air of a man whose elevator not only doesn't reach the top floor, but might be permanently stuck in the basement. The most jarring aspect of this transformation isn't just that Ted is weak, it's that the writing insists on pretending he isn't. A man who wrecks his marriage, wallows in regret, and then decides the best path forward is to be friends with the woman who detonated his home life should not be painted as complex. That's not nuance, it's nonsense. Yet the show treats this misguided friendship as some kind of emotional milestone, as if civility were a substitute for common sense. Watching Ted reminisce about his affair with Leslie while claiming to respect Nicole is the kind of absurdity only soap writers or masochistic viewers could stomach. And Leslie, Dana, whatever name she's using this week, remains the gravitational force pulling Ted into orbit around stupidity. Her very presence on screen has become a test of patience. The woman strides into other people's homes with the self-assurance of someone who knows the writers have no intention of letting her face consequences. In any believable world, she'd have been tossed out before finishing her first smug sentence. Yet in Beyond the Gates, she's treated like a recurring meteor strike, inevitable, destructive, and bizarrely tolerated. Nicole, for her part, is trapped in a script that can't decide whether she's a professional therapist or a tragic pushover. Her decades-long marriage ends with little more than a few sheets of paper and a sigh, and somehow she's the one expected to carry the show's moral compass. When she displays a flicker of regret over divorcing Ted, the audience doesn't feel sympathy, it feels secondhand embarrassment. Her compassion toward Carlton, her willingness to hear him out, even after his transgressions, only sharpens the contrast with Ted's self-inflicted ruin. The absurdity peaks when Ted invokes neglect as the justification for his affair. The woman was enduring miscarriages, but apparently his loneliness trumped her trauma. This isn't just tone-deaf writing, it's character assassination by way of laziness. If the show intended to explore emotional alienation, it failed spectacularly. Instead, it offered a master class in how to turn a once promising character into the embodiment of mediocrity. And then comes the matter of authenticity, or rather, the complete absence of it. When the show's dialogue veers into street justice territory, demanding that Leslie be put in her place, the complaint isn't just about morality, it's about cultural truth. The emotional realism that should anchor the drama has been replaced with sanitized melodrama that no one believes. As one might say, ain't no way in soap opera hell a woman like Nicole would let her home be invaded twice by the same manipulative interloper and simply sigh about it. A little black girl magic, as one exasperated viewer suggested, might have gone a long way toward grounding the narrative in something resembling lived reality. Even the supporting players orbiting this disaster add insult to injury. Martin and Smitty managed to make screen time feel like detention. Their scenes, meant to offer levity, register more as involuntary naps. And then there's Samantha, the resident adolescent cyclone, whose every tantrum is met with indulgence rather than consequence. She's a walking PSA for ineffective parenting, and yet the adults around her seem perpetually confused as to why chaos follows her like perfume. The episode structure itself reveals another failure of the genre's self-awareness. Fans of traditional soap operas understand the rhythm. Tension builds toward Friday, cools by Monday, and breathes midweek. Beyond the Gates, however, seems determined to flatten all emotion into a constant drone of implausibility. Every day feels like Tuesday, too tired to excite, too confused to resolve. Ted's downward spiral might have been compelling if it resembled an actual human unraveling. Instead, It's the televised equivalent of a slow-motion pratfall, drawn out, predictable, and entirely avoidable. His friendship with Leslie is not redemption, it's repetition. His conversations with her are not emotional closure, they're narrative malpractice. The show seems desperate to convince its audience that Ted deserves sympathy, but what it truly inspires is fatigue. What remains most tragic isn't Ted's broken marriage, it's the writer's refusal to let him evolve. Every scene insists he's on the brink of self-awareness, only to shove him right back into idiocy. When he speaks of being neglected, the hypocrisy is staggering. The man abandoned his wife during her grief, blamed her for his infidelity, and now wanders through town with a victim complex so large it should have its own billing. And yet, in some perverse way, Ted's descent captures the essence of Beyond the Gates. Ambition without comprehension. The show wants to be about redemption, morality, and the complexity of human weakness. Instead, it gives us a man who mistakes stupidity for sincerity, and a script that confuses repetition for depth. If there's one lesson to be learned from Ted's saga, it's this. When your protagonist loses all dignity, your drama loses its heart. What was once a compelling story about love and betrayal has devolved into a carnival of implausibility, propped up by nostalgia and inertia. Watching Ted's scenes now feels less like entertainment and more like a public service announcement about the dangers of forgiving bad writing. If Beyond the Gates has a consistent theme, it's that the women of Fairmont Crest are either saints with Stockholm Syndrome or sinners without a shred of self-awareness. Every storyline involving them is drenched in contradictions, like a morality play written by someone who's never met an actual woman. The show promises strong female leads, but what it delivers are archetypes on emotional clearance. The scorned wife who forgives too easily, the mistress who acts like the victim, the friend who mistakes dysfunction for empowerment, and the daughter who's been raised without a single working boundary in sight. Take Leslie, or Dana, or whatever celestial alias she's operating under this week. She is, quite simply, the chaos engine that refuses to die. Her character has long passed the point of complexity and settled into full-fledged caricature. Watching her parade around town in angel costumes and delusions of moral superiority is like witnessing an art installation titled The Limits of Human Patience. Her entire existence seems designed to provoke Nicole, yet the show treats her intrusion as just another day in melodrama heaven. The fact that she can stroll into Nicole's home, deliver a monologue, and leave unharmed speaks less to realism and more to the writer's apparent fear of confrontation. Then there's Nicole herself, the would-be moral anchor of this imploding universe. As a therapist, one might expect her to recognize toxic behavior when it's standing in her living room, offering unsolicited friendship. Instead, she's written as the embodiment of restraint gone wrong, forgiving everyone except the one person who might actually deserve it. Her inability to hold Ted accountable in any meaningful way is astonishing. One moment she's serving divorce papers, the next, she's gazing wistfully into the middle distance, as if reconsidering whether her husband's emotional desertion was really that bad. This isn't maturity, it's martyrdom disguised as grace. The writers seem convinced that Nicole's indecision makes her profound. In reality, it makes her exhausting. Her polished exterior and professional credentials only heighten the absurdity of her choices. She embodies the show's ongoing failure to reconcile intelligence with emotion. Every time she forgives, it feels less like strength and more like submission in pearls. And while we're on the subject of poor judgment, enter Vanessa, the society rebel with the moral compass of a malfunctioning GPS. This woman has managed to turn adultery into a lifestyle brand, and somehow her friends still invite her to brunch. The show tries to frame her infidelity as liberated self-expression, but it lands closer to self-parody. Even her late husband Doug's pleas for decency went ignored. He begged, she bedded, and the show called it empowerment. The irony is breathtaking. Worse yet, Nicole and Dany, two women who could have used their own heartbreak to model discernment, seem to give Vanessa a perpetual pass. They'll weep over their husband's indiscretions, yet dismiss Vanessa's serial escapades as just how she is. It's a hypocrisy so glaring it should come with its own lighting crew. The attempt to justify her behavior through vague suggestions of an understanding with Doug only makes it worse. No, it was not an understanding. It was a tired husband trying to survive his wife's delusions. Some argue that Vanessa's descent into bed-hopping and bad decisions is part of a revenge arc, that perhaps she's secretly plotting against Joey, the new villainous lover. But that theory gives the writing far too much credit. Her supposed vengeance looks suspiciously like infatuation, and her grief manifests less as strategy than as erotic nostalgia. If this is empowerment, it's the kind that comes with a hangover and regret. Meanwhile, Samantha, the next generation of dysfunction, is sprinting down the same path of reckless impulse. A spoiled, reactive teenager with the emotional range of a reality show contestant, she manages to turn every situation into a scandal. The audience's collective urge to take a belt to her is less about discipline and more about fatigue. Her antics, sneaking into homes, spilling secrets, manipulating adults, would be almost entertaining if they weren't so repetitive. Instead, she serves as the show's cautionary tale for what happens when every adult character is too preoccupied with their own melodrama to parent. What's truly alarming is how the women's storylines all orbit around the same hollow premise: forgiveness without accountability. No matter how outrageous the betrayal, every confrontation ends in a sigh, a hug, and a fresh batch of denial. The show mistakes tolerance for depth, confusing endurance with evolution. Each of these women could have been compelling studies in resilience. Instead, they're trapped in emotional purgatory, forever circling the same arguments in slightly different wigs. And then there's the glaring issue of cultural authenticity, a problem so consistent it deserves its own credit line. The show's portrayal of Black women in particular oscillates between sanitized respectability and cartoonish melodrama, never daring to embrace the emotional realism that would make these conflicts sing. Viewers have noticed. "Ain't nobody Black writing this," one lamented. And they're right. Real dialogue would carry bite, rhythm, and the unapologetic fire of women who refuse to be humiliated twice by the same man. Instead, Beyond the Gates offers decorum where there should be fury, politeness where there should be power. It's as if the writers fear their own characters. They flinch at confrontation, soften every blow, and sand down every edge. The result? A soap that wants to be bold but ends up beige. The women of Fairmont Crest deserve better than endless cycles of self-inflicted suffering. They deserve to speak like human beings, not Hallmark cards with trauma. In the end, these women are not liberated, they're exhausted. The audience is left not inspired, but incredulous, watching as each character mistakes submission for growth and chaos for passion. Beyond the Gates had the opportunity to explore sisterhood as solidarity. Instead, it delivered sisterhood as spectatorship, women watching each other drown while complimenting their earrings. If Beyond the Gates were a city, the main characters would be its crumbling landmarks, and the supporting cast, the potholes you can't avoid. Every subplot arrives with the enthusiasm of a bad houseguest and the payoff of an expired coupon. These side stories don't enrich the world, they clutter it. The writers seem to believe that more characters equal more drama, but all it creates is narrative noise, loud, shapeless, and self-defeating. Take Chelsea and Madison, for instance, the show's attempt at portraying a modern, emotionally intelligent couple. Instead, we get a social experiment in boundary violation. Chelsea, impulsive and chronically allergic to good sense, behaves less like a partner and more like a walking public service announcement on why emotional meddling should be a misdemeanor. Madison, the endlessly composed neurologist, carries herself with the patience of a saint until, inevitably, Chelsea's need to fix people detonates their serenity. Their looming argument is telegraphed from miles away, and the audience is meant to find it riveting. It isn't. It's the romantic equivalent of watching someone repeatedly touch a hot stove and wonder why it burns. The so-called relationship tension between them is meant to humanize the show, a breather from the chaos of infidelity and deceit. But what we get instead are the world's most polite fireworks, Chelsea crossing lines, Madison sighing, and a chorus of viewers muttering finally. Even the fan predictions, Madison losing her cool, Chelsea inviting the wrong person to a family gathering, Willow Montgomery showing up with tofu pie, feel more imaginative than anything the writers will dare put on screen. And then there's Dany and Andre, the poster couple for romantic redundancy. Their marriage is less a union than a waiting room for inevitable heartbreak. Both are still haunted by their exes, and neither has the courage to admit it. The chemistry that once held promise has decayed into polite avoidance. Dany hasn't told Andre about kissing Bill, which is less a secret and more an omen. The audience already knows how this story ends. Mutual understanding, tearful goodbyes, and a promise to remain friends. It's the soap opera equivalent of recycling. Andre, for all his charm, is another casualty of lazy writing. His goodness is his only personality trait. Dany, meanwhile, is the latest in a long line of characters who mistake emotional repression for strength. Their marriage will dissolve, not in scandal, but in size, and the show will present it as maturity. It isn't. It's narrative cowardice. While these side plots sputter, the writers throw in bits of meta-humor, as though self-awareness might disguise incompetence. References to the real world and Insecure pop up like Easter eggs in a forgotten DVD commentary, reminding the audience that the actors once had better material. The result isn't clever, it's desperate. Winking at the audience doesn't make the dialogue sharper, it only highlights how dull the rest has become. Then we have Samantha's teenage tragedy in progress, the show's attempt at youth drama. Her story flirts with scandal, rumors, betrayals, and the ever-looming threat of public humiliation. But even that feels undercooked. The girl is reckless, yes, but the show treats her misbehavior as inevitable rather than consequential. Viewers predict everything from pregnancy to reputation ruin, but whatever direction it takes, the setup already feels too sanitized to matter. The writers are allergic to risk, and it shows. Samantha's chaos should be electric. Instead, it's exhausting. Vanessa's saga, meanwhile, continues to fester in its own contradictions. Her alleged partnership with Joey might have been a deliciously dark revenge plot, had it been written with an ounce of restraint. Instead, we get a grieving widow turned amateur mobster, channeling grief into criminal entrepreneurship. One might admire her audacity if it weren't so laughably implausible. She talks about taking down Joey as if she's auditioning for Empire, but accidentally wandered onto the bold and the beautiful. If the intention was to give her complexity, it failed. If the goal was to make her unpredictable, congratulations. It's working, but only because the logic collapsed. The show's approach to morality remains as muddled as ever. Characters cheat, lie, and scheme, only to be rewarded with sympathy and redemption arcs. The moral universe of Beyond the Gates seems powered by selective amnesia. Ted betrays his wife and is still presented as a misunderstood romantic. Vanessa sabotages her marriage and gets painted as a free spirit. Samantha manipulates everyone around her, yet we're expected to view her as a poor, confused teen. Every sin is followed by a sermon about forgiveness, but forgiveness here is not virtue. It's laziness. It's a way to reset the board without doing the work. Even the supposed moral debates between fans about who deserves grace and who doesn't only reveal how thinly these characters are drawn. One viewer defends Vanessa's behavior as consensual freedom. Another calls it delusional self-sabotage. Both are right, because the show itself can't decide what story it's telling. The result is moral relativism masquerading as depth. And let's not forget the writer's ongoing war with authenticity. The dialogue is so sanitized it squeaks. Every confrontation feels like it's been rehearsed at a corporate HR retreat. The emotional stakes, infidelity, betrayal, grief, should crackle with tension, but instead, they drift along like a politely worded email. The show wants to be raw, but it keeps choosing respectable. The consequence is a world where everyone talks about pain without ever feeling it. If the supporting characters were meant to add texture, they've instead created clutter. Every subplot fights for relevance, and none of them win. The writers seem terrified of letting any story breathe. They chase momentum like it's a metric, piling on twists until the whole narrative collapses under its own weight. Watching Beyond the Gates now feels like flipping through channels of the same show, every episode featuring different faces but identical problems. And yet, despite its chaos, there's an odd charm in the disaster. The series has achieved what few soaps can, uniting its audience in collective exasperation. Each scene becomes an exercise in disbelief, each plot line a shared joke between viewers who no longer watch for drama but for spectacle. Beyond the Gates has become its own parody, a show that takes itself seriously only so that no one else has to. In the end, the problem isn't the excess of storylines, it's the absence of purpose. Every affair, argument, and betrayal unfolds in a vacuum, unanchored by consequence or growth. The characters orbit endlessly around their mistakes, mistaking motion for meaning. It's fitting, then, that the series often feels like its own title. Beyond the Gates, a place where logic doesn't live, consistency is a rumor, and everyone's too polite to admit the house is on fire. What could have been a layered exploration of love, loss, and moral decay has instead become a glittering mess of half-baked ideas and recycled emotions. Still, credit where it's due. It's never boring. Watching this show is like watching a chandelier fall in slow motion. You can't look away, even as it shatters spectacularly on impact. Beyond the Gates spoilers for Thursday, October 30th suggest Derek Baldwin will have a change of heart when it comes to his wedding, and Ted Richardson and Leslie Thomas will get closer. Off the cusp of his confrontation with Nicole Dupree and his best friend and business partner, Carlton Fitzgerald, during the Tuesday, October 28th show, it sounds like Ted may consider moving forward as a couple with Leslie. Then again, BTG spoilers can be cryptic and try to swerve fans, so perhaps Ted will believe it's time to move forward as a pair so they can co-parent their daughter, Eva Thomas, more effectively. Still, Ted's ego is mighty bruised by Nicole's rejection. Plus, Leslie won't give up on making Ted hers, so there's also a chance these two hit the sheets for the umpteenth time. Speaking of Nicole, she'll have some fun Halloween plans with her dad, Vernon Dupree. However, they'll get interrupted by an intruder. With that said, the father-daughter duo will also get stopped by a family member, seeking some words of wisdom. Could Martin Richardson stop by for some advice about Samantha Richardson? After all, he and Bradley Smitty Smith caught her and Nathan half-dressed on the family's couch, with a condom on the floor. Martin could turn to his mom and grandfather for support, so only time will tell. Meanwhile, the Gates spoilers for the October 30 episode suggest that Samantha will get teased or bullied by her fellow classmates over Tuesday's incident. Will Nathan run his mouth about what the two did? Added teasers hint, her brother, Tyrell Richardson, will defend her honor, so something will be up with Samantha and Nathan. The only silver lining is that Traelle defending Samantha will score points with Jessica, so fans can expect these two teens to continue bonding. Finally, Derek will be triggered after a talk with Andre Richardson. So much so, he'll make a change where his wedding to Ashley Morgan is concerned. Fans know it's highly unlikely that Derek will call the wedding off. However, he might suggest moving everything up. If Andre has a bad day and complains about his marriage to Dany Dupree, this could have Derek suggesting that he and Ashley get married right away, or even to elope. Then again, Andre may talk about how great his Vegas quickie wedding with Dany was. Either way, Beyond the Gates spoilers hint that Derek is desperate to secure Ashley as his wife, and may suggest foregoing an extravagant and pricey wedding for something simpler and quicker. It's Halloween in Fairmont Crest, which means it's costume time. Vernon's rockin' the perfectly colored orange and brown sweater, while Nicole and unwelcome trick-or-treater Leslie are pulling a wardrobe-related Freaky Friday. How? Nicole's dressed as a witch, while Leslie is working angel wings. Over at Smitty and Martin's pad, Samantha whines about being grounded, while Tyrell and Jessica look adorable as the chess king and queen. Elsewhere, Derek arranges for he and Ashley to dress as bride and groom. After attending a party off-screen for the baby Andre and Ashley delivered, Derek and his lady cross paths with Andre at a local restaurant. Once Andre leaves, the happy couple starts talking wedding dates, which pretty much triggers a panic attack in Ashley. At Orphe Jean's, Tyrell overhears Nathan tell someone that the DMV's top model wants me to punch her V-card. It pretty quickly becomes evident that something else, namely Nathan, is about to be punched. Jessica declares Nathan gross, and Tyrell stands up for his sis, even after finding out she lifted his phone to send her would-be lover texts. Verbal barbs fly, and Nathan is clearly out of his league. Jessica scores big points when she makes it clear she doesn't care that Tyrell isn't one of the cool kids. Meanwhile, Samantha asks Nicole if she can move in with her. They have a very honest talk about sex, with Nicole mostly avoiding sounding judgmental. Sharing your body with another person means sharing your whole self, Grandma shares. That experience without affection can be very cold. And eavesdropping, Martin hears his daughter admit that she got the idea that sleeping with Nathan would bring them closing from Kat. Martin loses it, even more so after finding out Sam wants to live with her grandma. Leslie crosses paths with Ted at Uptown, despite having just received advice, courtesy of Andre, that he give Nicole space. She's all Ted wants to talk about with Leslie. She turns every word out of his mouth into a supposed come-on until he finally says she's blowing everything, including their chance to be friends. She admits that trying to destroy him wasn't as rewarding as she thought it would be. They begin reflecting on the past, the mood lightens, and he wonders if maybe they can start fresh. Here are your spoilers for Beyond the Gates on Thursday, October 30th, 2025. In Friday's episode, Anita's twist to an upcoming annual event could help heal old wounds. With a celebration of Thanksgiving coming up, there are many things Anita could do to try to make the past not hurt so much for some people. Barbara would be an easy guess as to who it involves. Haley is doing a great job at playing Bill thus far. The eagle-eyed lawyer is yet to see anything in his own domain to alert him to the treacherous acts his wife is capable of. In Friday's episode, Bill buys his wife some peace of mind, while Haley is rattled by a run-in with Joey. Joey knows that his employee Randy has claimed that he and Mrs. Hamilton are having an affair. Joey has a lot to talk about with Haley, and it will surprise her how much he knows. Chelsea, Ronnie Rose Mantilla, and Madison had a dinner at the Fairmont Crest Country Club, and Madison told Chelsea all about her mother and how she's trying to promote her own beliefs on Chelsea's socials. This has caused one patient already to leave Madison. Madison wanted to handle it on her own, but that's like waving a red flag at a bull to Chelsea, who did a social media poll on whether she should get involved, despite the survey saying she should butt out. Chelsea does what Chelsea does. In Friday's episode, Madison is upset with Chelsea for butting into family business. Fridays mean cliffhangers and big moments, and in Friday's episode, Eva gets a touching offer that promises to deepen one of her relationships. Look for Leslie, Tomas, and Isaiah to play a part. Which one will Eva lean towards? This is going to be good to see Eva have some nice things happen to her again. It's been a while. We can count on it not being Kat, that's for sure. The Beyond the Gates spoilers for Friday, October 31st, 2025, suggest that tricks and treats are coming for the residents of Fairmont Crest. Haley will get spooked by Joey. Meanwhile, Bill wants to buy his wife's peace without realizing the cost. Bill Hamilton wants to buy his wife peace of mind, while Haley is rattled by a run-in with Joey. It was recently revealed that Haley is a con artist who faked a pregnancy and miscarriage to keep her husband's attention on her and only her. Additionally, she wants to get her hands on his money, and she has an accomplice. Randy. Joey is already suspicious of Randy and Haley's connection. While it was revealed that the two are cousins, Randy told Joey that he and Haley were involved. That's why they have been spending time together. If Joey catches up with Haley, it's easy to realize why this Halloween episode interaction may go bonkers, leaving Haley rattled. Joey wants no trouble from Bill, and so Joey may need to lay down the law with Haley. As for Bill, buying his wife's peace of mind may mean getting her something extravagant and letting her know that she's the only woman for him. Anita's twist to an upcoming annual event could help heal old wounds. This twist could have something to do with the Articulates. The majority of her storyline has involved her guilt in the death of the fourth member, Barbara Mitchell. Might this twist have something to do with Leslie? She is Barbara's daughter, after all. Eva gets a touching offer that promises to deepen one of her relationships. It's not known who this person is. However, this storyline could be related to newcomer Isaiah Hawthorne, with whom Eva has been spending a lot of time lately. Their bond is likely to deepen, leaving Tom's out in the cold. Finally, Madison is upset with Chelsea for butting into family business. Apparently, Madison isn't going to like the fact that Chelsea tries to fix the turbulent relationship between Madison and her mother. How upset does Madison get? Does this mean Chelsea's about to spend Halloween alone? Beyond the Gates star Mike Manning fired shots at Ghost star Asher Grodman on social media. But he decided to pay it forward with a nice gesture. It's Halloween, so everyone is getting into the spirit, even your favorite CBS stars. Manning received a sweet gift from Grodman. He described him as his new friend, but these two act like frenemies. Manning shared a hilarious video of his reaction on Instagram. "So I received some gifts from my new friend, Asher Grodman. You probably don't know who he is," Manning said. "He's on the show Ghosts on CBS, so let's see what he sent." He opened a box that contained all of the Ghosts merchandise, including a hat, a boo bag, a mug, snacks, and more. Manning was grateful for Grodman's thoughtful gift, but he had to set the record straight. "So the thing that happened is that Asher made a video, fake apologizing for beating me in fantasy football. He also made fun of soap operas and said some other things," Manning explained, before firing some shots. "They hurt my feelings. I was so sad as I was polishing my 2 Daytime Emmy Awards." The words "shots fired" appeared on Manning's video, accompanied by the sound of gunshots. But he wasn't done yet. He wanted to respond to Grodman's cruel comments. "First, I'll say, Asher, we were projected to get the same amount of points. There's no way that we would have known that James Cook and Rashee Rice would have blown up like that, okay? So enjoy your 6-2 victory for now. I don't care. I beat Jeremy Sisto. That's really what matters," Manning said. However, he had nothing mean to say about the show Ghosts, since he's a huge fan of the comedy. "I actually think it's funny despite you being on it. So that's just a testament to the cast carrying that dead weight. Pun intended," the BTG star added. But he was inspired by Grodman's kind gesture. "I'm going to pay it forward and send some gifts to CBS's page, Noah, to keep this going. Happy Halloween," he said. Manning's BTG co-star Jen Jacob said it best in the comments section. "This is the content we all need." Meanwhile, other fans wanted the tea on their fantasy football rivalry. Beyond the Gates star, Mike Manning just revealed a fact that he's been keeping close to the vest for 15 years, thanks to an Easter egg on the CBS soap. Taking to X, Manning posted a video that kicked off with a scene between Smitty and Martin after they just caught Samantha hooking up with Nathan. During the conversation, Smitty says to Martin, "We can't pretend that sex wasn't in every song that we listened to growing up or on every season of The Real World." A flip of the camera shows Manning laughing before he explains why that line had him cracking up. Whoever at Beyond the Gates is responsible for this line making it into the show. That is hilarious. So back in 2010, I followed one of my best friends to a random audition for MTV's The Real World. I ended up getting on the show, Real World DC, and it changed the trajectory of my entire life, he expressed. Manning revealed that when he moved to Los Angeles to pursue acting, his agent told him never to mention being on The Real World, or he wouldn't be taken seriously as an actor. And so I didn't. I just never talked about it, and now here we are, all these years later, and on Beyond the Gates, whichever writer decided to incorporate that line into my character's dialogue. "It's so funny. Well played," Manning stated. The actor clearly got a chuckle out of someone finding out his little secret. "It was a great line, and our hats are off to that writer too." The Thursday, October 30th, episode of Beyond the Gates featured family dysfunction on Halloween, no less. Vernon and a witchy Nicole tried to have a safe, scary holiday. Instead, Nicole's mansion erupted in drama, first from an angeled-up Leslie. Then Martin, Smitty, and Samantha invaded her place, so Samantha could get some much-needed advice from her grandmother. At the same time, her brother had a confrontation of his own at Orphe Jean's. Samantha thinks she knows what she wants and who she wants to be. And at Nicole's, her grandmother takes her into what should be a safe space to talk about her dad's catching her in the act of making out with Nathan on their couch. But things were clearly headed for much more since Nathan, who did get Samantha's consent, had dropped a condom in front of the couch. Nicole was able to get the real story from her granddaughter, that she and Nathan were a situationship. They knew each other from school and hung out a couple of times, but Samantha thinks that she's mature enough to handle where things were heading. And while she asked Nicole if she could stay with her grandmother, it doesn't seem like she listened to the advice Nicole gave her. When Martin accidentally eavesdropped and discovered that Samantha was inspired to take things to the next level after Kat talked about sex with Tomas, the atmosphere grew significantly tense. Martin insisted that he was about to have a conversation with his sister. Samantha had to admit that she had only overheard Kat. She also expressed her wish to move in with Nicole, which left Martin and Smitty shocked. Samantha talks like someone who thinks she's grown up enough to have sex with someone, but ultimately, underneath it all, she's not putting any thought into the consequences of her actions. Is she ready for that? Why can't she and Nathan take the slow burn route? Meanwhile, at Orphe Jeans, Tyrell and Jessica, dressed in chess-related costumes, decided they wouldn't even attend the party that a grounded Samantha had desperately wanted to attend. But they first had to deal with Nathan. The duo overheard Nathan basically talking about taking Samantha's virginity and treating it like it was another addition to his body count. Ugh. Tyrell and Jessica both stood up to him, but Tyrell's refusal to back down in the face of this jock was much more impressive, especially to Jessica. Tyrell didn't need to use his fists. He comes from a family of people who know their way with words, and that's what he did. He used words to knock Nathan down a peg. Later, in the booth, Tyrell and Jessica were super sweet. They definitely seemed to be on the same page, and they connected. We'll see if these two will establish a lasting foundation, but so far, things are back on track for them. Rounding out the Richardson family drama in this first Halloween-themed episode was Ted. Spoilers suggested that he and Leslie would forge a new path forward. And that's kind of what happened. It just wasn't the ideal path for Leslie, but she seems to be dealing with it for now. Ted decided to put the past, including all his ugliness, Leslie's ugliness, and their drama, behind them so they could simply start a friendship. Will she ultimately let that happen, especially when Ted potentially gets a new love interest this holiday season? Because Leslie has proved to be territorial where Ted is concerned, we'll believe it when we see it. On Beyond the Gates, Samantha was busted with her boyfriend at her place, on the couch, and about to take things too far. However, the only one who could get through to her was Tyrell. The embarrassment on Samantha's face was evident, and she knew she had done wrong, but couldn't see the full extent of the errors she had made. Smitty and Martin came in hot, and were outraged at what they saw. Their underage daughter on the couch with this older boy on top of her, kissing. To make matters worse, a condom had fallen on the floor. Martin was so furious that he asked the boy to leave and said he was not to call, text, email, or contact Samantha in any way again. He continued by saying that if he sees her in the hallway at school, he's to turn around and walk the other way, fast. After Martin finished, Samantha was angry and told him he had ruined her life. The idea that she could have gotten pregnant and it actually be her life that was destroyed wasn't even considered. Nor was the fact that she was home alone with an older boy that no one knew. The dangers of this were not lost on Smitty or Martin. When she left to go upstairs, her last words were, "Whatever," showing she wasn't at all taking any of this seriously. Tyrell soon followed her upstairs, and before Samantha could dive into a rant about how unfair it was and the fact that she had been grounded, Tyrell spoke up and said something that hopefully will resonate with her. Tyrell cut Samantha off as she was talking and said the person he couldn't believe was her, the way she was acting. Tyrell explained that he knew Nate and that he wasn't the sweet boy that Samantha thought she knew. Nate was known for his locker room talk about all the girls he had smashed. Tyrell didn't want locker room talk about his sister and the innuendos that would fly around the school. He was protecting her reputation. Just when we thought it was working, Samantha got Tyrell to put his headphones on, took his phone, and immediately messaged Nate, telling him she was on her brother's phone and asking if they could talk. The sly look on her face said it all. this is going to get worse before it gets better. Beyond the Gates has seen its fair share of heartbreak and power struggles, but a new arrival is about to shake the family to its core. His presence promises to reopen old wounds, test loyalties, and bring long-buried emotions to the surface. But who is he, and why does his arrival feel like the calm before a storm? The Dupree family's storylines have grown increasingly volatile in recent weeks, especially as Jacob continues to grapple with the fallout from his fractured relationship with his father, Elon. Eva and Kat have been doing their best to hold the family together, but under the polished surface of the estate, deep rifts are forming. Into this mix comes Isaiah, whose connection to the family will soon become central to the unfolding drama. Viewers have been left wondering what role he'll play in the Dupree's fragile balance and whether reconciliation or rivalry awaits. Behind the scenes, actor David Lemmy Freebie, who plays Isaiah, shared that he received the call confirming the role less than 2 days before filming. He revealed that he had to memorize 4 full episodes during a flight, an intense preparation that set the stage for one of the soap's most emotional introductions yet. When Isaiah steps into the story, the emotional stakes rise immediately. Freebie revealed that his first scenes were with Eva and Kat, and that the early scripts set up a rare and compelling arc focused on brotherhood and a strained father-son bond. Freebie expressed that working alongside Jibril Horges and Malachi Malik helped bring those raw emotions to life. He described how the scenes explore reconciliation in unexpected ways, pushing both brothers to confront what tore them apart in the first place. Behind his confident on-screen debut, Freebie remained deeply grateful to his team and mentors. He credited casting director Kim Coleman and writers Michele Valjean and Sheila Dux for trusting him with such a complex role. He also thanked his acting coach, Shannon Sturgis, for preparing him to handle the world of daytime television. As soon as Isaiah appeared on screen, fans took to social media to celebrate his arrival. Comments poured in praising Freebie's performance, charisma, and chemistry with the cast. Stay tuned to Soap Opera Daily for all the latest Beyond the Gates spoilers, news, and exclusive updates. The latest Beyond the Gates spoilers for Wednesday reveal growing friction between Vanessa and Dany as loyalties are tested and priorities come into sharp focus. With secrets, ambition, and power all tangled together, Vanessa reaches a breaking point, and her next move leaves Dany questioning everything she thought she knew about her. Tensions have been simmering between Vanessa and Dany for weeks, and it's finally coming to a head. Vanessa's connection with Joey Armstrong has left her family increasingly uneasy. Nicole has openly criticized her sister's choices, warning her that aligning with someone as dangerous as Joey could spell disaster. Dany, too, has tried to intervene, but her efforts only seem to push Vanessa further away. Vanessa, however, has her own ideas about power and control. She doesn't want to be rescued or warned. She wants to be respected. Drawn to the thrill and danger Joey represents, she's determined to carve out her own space in his world. Vanessa believes she can handle the heat, but Dany sees it differently and fears she's about to get burned. On Wednesday, Vanessa makes sure Dany finally understands where her loyalties lie, and the message she delivers could permanently change their dynamic. Meanwhile, Joey isn't in the mood for compromise.